Have you ever felt lost, untethered, searching for something more? Welcome to Angelic Footprints, where the spirit meets the road on a journey to self-healing and rediscovery. I'm Dagmar, your host, psychic medium and seasoned traveler. Each week, we'll explore the world of angels and personal transformation. We're going to dive into compelling histories and captivating mythology. You're going to hear remarkable, real-life angel encounters and discover how you too can connect with the angels guiding your path. Whether it's through practical tips, meditation techniques, or stories that resonate deeply, Angelic Footprints is here to light your way. From mystical journeys to profound self-discovery, let's embark on this transformative journey together. Are you ready to find your angelic guide? Then subscribe to Angelic Footprints today and step into a world where angels walk beside you every step of the way. Angels, spirituality, healing. Let's ignite your transformation. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Angelic Footprints podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Cindy Grogan. She is known as the Sensible Psychic. She's a professional writer, psychic medium, and animal communicator. She studied at Lilydale Assembly in New York, the Omega Institute, and with Audrey Willey of the Woodland Sanctuary Spiritualist Foundation in Australia. She's also studied mediumship at the prestigious Arthur Findlay College in the UK. Cindy is known as the Sensible Psychic for her plain-spoken, down-to-earth approach. She's the author of 2 books, Okay, So You're Dead, A Sassy Guide to the Afterlife, and Your Pet Has Died. Now what? She comes without further introduction and without further ado. Welcome, Cindy, to the show.
Thank you, Dagmar. It's so much fun to be with you. And I remember that's how you and I met, was at Arthur Findlay.
Absolutely. And, so many experiences, so many years that I've known you. I'd love to hear about some of your angelic experiences so that our listeners can hear your story.
Okay, well, I kind of got into the psychic metaphysical world back in the 80s. Just by accident, I took a psychic development course and it was just for fun. But that night just changed everything. Started getting information. I was just all in. So I spent the following years studying, reading everything I could get my hands on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, in the 80s, the New Age movement was really picking up, and angels were a very big part of it. I was a little bit agnostic about angels because the way they were being presented were, oh, they were so cute and they were so sweet and so gentle and kind of squishy. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's really what I can cotton to. However, there was an experience that sort of changed my thinking. I was working at a really crappy job in Manhattan, and I was living in Queens, and I drove home in my tiny little Honda Civic, and I was mad and frustrated and just really annoyed just with everything. And it was nighttime, and I pulled into a gas station. Now, where I lived in Queens was kind of sketchy. Not really a very nice part, but it was the 80s. I wasn't making any money. That's where I lived. So I pull into this gas station that I'd stopped at all the time, and this guy comes. It was dark. I can still see the lights, shining onto the pumps. And this guy comes up to pump my gas. I'd never seen him before. He was an old man. He was brown skinned, very dark. I thought maybe he was Indian with very white hair. And I rolled down my window and I said, $10 regular cash, please. And I just was grumpy. And he looked in and he says, it's going to be all okay, don't you? And I was like, excuse me? Why are you talking to me? Just pump my gas. And I watched him and I could see it struck me as so odd because it seemed like this is not something a total stranger says to you. But I was watching him pump my gas and I swear to God, I'm looking at his hair. And granted, it was very white and there were lights on, but he was literally glowing. And I thought, all right, this is just weird. But when I handed him my money, he touched my hand and he said, "Really, it's going to be okay." And I was like, "Wow, thank you." And I never saw that guy at that station again. That's always where I went. And I remember feeling so struck by it that I went home and I called my friend who was also on the metaphysical path with me. And she goes, "Oh, you just met an angel." I'm like, "Get out of here." She goes, "No, seriously, you did." She goes, "How do you feel now?" And I said, "I feel a lot more hopeful. I feel better." If nothing else, it was a very kind thing to say, but it was really out of the blue. And that moment stayed with me. And sure enough, things did start to get better after that. I got a better job, things started to pick up. But it just was such a standout moment that, 40 some years later, I can still recall. I mean, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I can remember that and all the details that went with it. So from then on, I started viewing angels in a less Hallmark card way and more like they are among us in a much more practical and to some extent muscular way. They're not, floating around. They're down here helping us in very practical, physical ways.
I love that story. It is amazing, and it just doesn't fail to amaze me how many times I've spoken to guests and the stories are very similar. And I hope our listeners can see that pattern starting to occur when you open your heart and your mind up to the possibility that this is
Mhm.
real. All of a sudden, magical things happen, and your story is it's wonderful. And as you said, it made you feel more hopeful. I'm sure you've had other experiences. Are there other experiences that you wanted to share with us as well?
Yes, actually, this did not happen to me, but this happened to my best friend at the time. She was living on Long Island and she used to like to go down to the beach because it's right there. And she called me right after this happened. She'd gone into the water. She'd gotten caught in a riptide. Now, there are lifeguards on those beaches, but for whatever reason, they weren't noticing her. And she was really panicking. She thought she was going to drown. And she said literally she was looking around, looking around, looking around, and then all of a sudden there was somebody right there in the water next to her. Didn't say a word, just grabbed her and got her back up to shore. Now, she was obviously shaken, but she turned and all of a sudden that person was not there. And she told me this story, and I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah, I swear to God, nobody really noticed. He just sort of brought her back up on shore. There was no people running over like, 'Oh my God, are you okay?' None of that. He just got her to shore, and then he was no longer there." And she walked up and down the sand after she got herself together to see if maybe he was nearby, never saw him. And she says, "I couldn't describe him to you, but I just remember the sensation of him grabbing onto my upper body, and she says, I felt like I could relax in his arms." And then all of a sudden, she was up on shore, she had her feet under her, sat down, and, took a breath, looked around, and he was gone. So, I thought that was very cool. I mean, you always hear about they show up in moments of crisis, and he definitely showed up for her. So, that was pretty wild, and, sort of circling back to the way I look at angels, I have well, you've been to my house. I have a lot of angel statues in my yard because I find them to be
Mhm.
pretty, but I also feel that they're good protectors. In fact, I have a habit at night when I go to bed at night, I envision I have one of them at each corner of my property holding a very big sword, sort of like my own personal alarm system. And it just makes me feel better. But when I envision them, I see them as tall and strong, and they do not mess around. They're benevolent and they're kind, but like I said, they're kind of muscular in their energy. They're not human. They're something completely different. One of my angels that I work with a lot when I do my readings is Archangel Michael. And I like him because he's good at cutting things loose that you don't need anymore. But the way he's been depicted is, he's got a big sword and he stands between you and danger. And I think about the angels. I guess it was Gabriel that announced the birth of Christ and scared the bejeepers out of those shepherds in the meadow. Angels throughout history and different traditions, they help dictate the Quran. They've done pretty impressive things. So their strength is just exceptional and strong. And I mean, they're organized like the military. I mean, there's all those different hierarchies. My overall take is angels are here to assist us for our sake as much as for the universe's sake, because let's face it, we've got to get our act together, and they can assist us and help develop our spiritual strength. So I tend to look at them as a combination of benevolence and strength and no nonsense. I kind of break it down to, it's like if you blended Queen Elizabeth, Alan Rickman, and Tony Soprano. That's what that to me is sort of sums up the overall approach of an angel. They love us. They're like a stern teacher that wants us to succeed, but they don't take any crap. And they're fearless and they want us to be fearless within reasons. I don't go for the whole Roma Downey touched by an angel thing. I want my angels with a little bit more meat on the bone. So that's how I view them.
Yeah, and that's one of the reason I thought you'd be a great guest for the show to help explain that, because you and I have had this conversation before about angels not necessarily being the whole cherub thing, and I'm so glad that you circled around to this as well.
Mhm.
I guess, would you agree that angels show up in a form that either we can recognize or that we can acknowledge?
Yeah, I think obviously, I think like our spirit guides and all those other helpers, there's got to be a connection between how we can recognize and work with them. If it's too overwhelming, we're going to be scared to death and we're not going to be open. If they're too cute and wobbly, we're just like, well, what could you really do for me? So I think it's somewhere in between where we recognize them, but we also know they're different than we are. And I think making that connection on a spiritual level is very reassuring. It's like, yeah, there's something more going on. We do have help. We don't have to do it all by ourselves. We are still responsible, but it's another indication of a connection to a greater source. And when they show up, like the dude at the gas station, that just made me feel better, and helped me reset my thinking so that I wasn't just going to be hanging from a shower rod later that week within despair, or the one that saved my girlfriend, from certain drowning. It's magical, it's practical, it's reassuring, but you always have to have that bit of respect. They know a lot more than we do. So to reduce them to pictures you see of like like a baby with the little wings on sitting in a flower pot, it's like, that doesn't do it for me. It's like, show some respect. That's where Tony Soprano comes in. Show some respect.
Well, it's a very good point. And I absolutely love your analogy that you gave today about the military hierarchy and
Mhm.
having that military precision. I've never heard that before, and yet it makes absolutely so much sense when you think of all the different angels that are available to us.
Mhm.
And it's not just about one kind of angel. There are many different kinds of angels, and this military thing, I really connect with that. That is an absolutely great analogy. Thank you for sharing that with us. One of the things that springs to mind too is we're talking about these stories, and without a doubt, there probably will be listeners who will go, do you know, I never thought about that it might have been an angel who helped me, saved me, or did something for me.
Mhm.
And I'd say you're absolutely right that, for the most of us, angels come in at a time when we do just absolutely need them. Tell me, with the experiences that you've had, and I don't doubt that you speak to angels and your angelic guides when you're doing your readings, but what would you say is your key takeaway from these experiences? If you had to give our listeners a message, what is it that you would like to impart and share today?
Okay. Well, my sort of brand is the sensible psychic. And I started that because getting into the new age space, there was a lot of stuff out there. And my motto is like, I don't believe everything and neither should you, because there's some pretty crazy stuff in the metaphysical space. But angels are something I think I would want people to know they are real. They are a thing. They are here. The whole purpose of us being here on this planet at this time is to evolve and grow and help each other, whether it's your friend, your neighbor, your town, your country, whatever. It's a collective effort. And the angels are a little bit like drill sergeants trying to get us into a better place to do that, not just for ourselves, but for other people. So I think the main thing to remember, just to accept that they do exist. They may not exist in the form or the way that you're expecting them to, but just acknowledging that they are an energetic spiritual presence in our world, I think opens it up, opens you up to experience them. I would also add something because my cat just came to sit down next to me. I think angels show up through our pets or through animals. I mean, any animal lover will tell you angel or pets or animals are just so much more elevated than we are. And I think in some ways they demonstrate angelic qualities of caring, soothing, protecting, reminding us of something bigger than ourselves, demonstrating that kind of higher way of being that I think is what all angels are trying to get us to do, to be better, to be more loving, more respectful of others' journeys, our planet, all of those things. And I think animals are a very sort of furry, angelic way to be reminded of that. So I like to think that they show us angelic behavior, even if they're being naughty, just the way that they interact with us, forgive us, love us unconditionally. Those are all qualities of angels as far as I'm concerned.
Cindy, that is an absolutely beautiful message. Thank you. And,
Oh,
me being a fellow cat lover, I absolutely 100% agree. And I'm sure that listeners out there would say, yeah, I can relate to that with my dog or my rabbit or whatever pet that they may have. And I
mhm.
would I would definitely agree with that. I guess I'd love you to share just a little bit about what you do and tell us a little bit about yourself because you've made this beautiful appearance here today. I'd love our listeners to get in touch with you if there is something that they feel like you can help them with.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I never started out to be a professional psychic. I was just really interested in drilling down into all the other sources of information that are available to us that, life is hard and we tend to just try to carry it all on ourselves. And learning that there are other ways to access information to sort of smooth the way or get some perspective or any of that, that was the reason I got into it. I started reading professionally quite by accident, but I found that I love really helping people and I love giving them perspectives on all of these things they can access from angels to spirit guides to loved ones on the other side to their animals. I love doing animal communication. And it's all about helping. But again, I try to keep it very practical because the whole point of it is, okay, you need a takeaway. You need something you can use and act on. So I do have a website, thesensiblepsychic.com, and I do have a Facebook page, The Sensible Psychic. And I love, interacting with my clients or just anybody that comes on the page, sharing information, sharing experiences like this. Because if nothing else, it's really cool. I mean, it's like, wow, talk about breaking up the humdrum when somebody says, "Oh yeah, an angel pumped my gas last night." I think that's fantastic. So I just and I'm a big fan of anytime I spot a feather, I'm like, "Oh, that's an angel. That's not necessarily my goose down mattress topper fluffing out. That's an angel." So yeah, all things angelic. And one of my favorite movies is It's a Wonderful Life. And I think Clarence, the angel that helps Jimmy Stewart, is kind of a good mix between being squishy and showing him, how wonderful his life is, but tapping the higher up angels with powers to show that to Jimmy Stewart's character. So I always watch that movie and I always feel better just because it's like, yeah, there's somebody watching over you. And yes, you have a guardian angel, but there's all these other angels that are willing to step in and help. In fact, I right after 9/11, I live right outside of New York City, and obviously it was a very dark time. And I found like a postcard, and it showed the globe being held in the arms of an angel, which I felt showed a healing, because everybody, no matter where they were in the world, was affected by that, by the tragedy. And I take such I still have it. I take such comfort in that image, because I feel like we don't have to do it. I mean, we do have to take responsibility, but we don't have to do it alone, as long as we ask for help and then be open to it. And then when something is offered you, take advantage of it. And then most importantly, always say thank you. It's just good manners. But when you open yourself to these other entities that are here to advance us in our global course, our individual course, it adds some magic, but it also takes some of the weight off, because let's face it, life is hard. It's just friggin' hard.
Life is hard. Life can be hard. And,
Mhm.
when we have challenges, I really hope that the listeners that have been tuning into the program today or in the future, that you really do connect with Cindy and that she can help you. If you're looking for someone who can give you some very practical advice and not just all the fluff, then please do get in touch with Cindy. She might even connect with your animals if that's something that you're looking for.
Mhm.
Cindy, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. And thank you very, very much for your time today. As a roundup, is there anything else that you would like to finish on today?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is fun. I could talk about this kind of stuff all day long, and you and I have, in fact, talked about stuff like this for hours. I guess I feel like the time that we're living through right now, let's face it, the last few years have been very, very difficult for everybody. And I personally feel that we are being tested. This is one of those critical times in history. People that lived through the Civil War, the Depression, wars, whatever. This is one of those times. And I feel that we're being tested, and we can make a choice to take a slightly more elevated look at how we live, how we interact with each other. Being kind, being helpful, being loving, I think is so important to maintain our own mental health, but also to help raise our spirit and our vibration to move us forward in a positive way. I do think that we will come out of it, but yeah, you really got to eat your Wheaties to get through every day. So I think I just want everybody to think about how you do your day. It takes no effort at all to smile at somebody, to say thank you, to let somebody ahead of you in line at the grocery store, to let somebody cut in front of you on the highway, hopefully using their blinkers. Little things like that, I think, reach a critical mass of a positive vibration. And I think that's really what the angels want us to do. It's all about raising our vibration, but it doesn't mean you have to go off to some ashram. You could just do it every day. Just be kind, be thoughtful, think twice before you want to say something mean to somebody. That's something I am having to work on a lot, especially now with all the politics going on. But angels want us to advance. So what little ways can you advance every day? It doesn't have to be huge. Just at the end of the day, you can say, I did something nice for somebody. I sent out some good energy. That's really what they want, but they're here to help us and to remind us of that. So it's a long-winded way of that's what I wanted to say.
You're absolutely right. There's an old saying, kindness costs nothing. And
Absolutely.
we've got a lot of craziness happening in the world around us. You are right. We probably are at a very pivotal time. And it is a good reminder for us to be nice to each other.
Mhm.
There's a lot of muck that we shouldn't have to wade through. So if we find a way of navigating our lives in a positive way, then hopefully we're going to share some of that positivity with others. Once again, Cindy, thank you so much for your time today. For all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you found this episode valuable, please share the information about the show with 3 people who you believe would find it beneficial. And if you really enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a 5-star review on the platform where you're listening. Until the next episode, blessings, and may your life be filled with hope and inspiration.